And so we're really going to dive today into e-com, or what we like to talk about at Decidr, ACOM, so agentic commerce. So buckle up. We're all going to go there. But before we get there, I want to just take you through a quick ride. Duncan, do you want to just your computer turn off? So first of all, you're all here. Congratulations, you have PhDs in human intelligence. Yes, you've been successful at your job. You've climbed the corporate ladder. You've grabbed customers. You've built them. You've grown them. You've built profitable business, and you've built scaling businesses. But we're about to enter into this new thing called AI. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an AI 101 for that. My bona fides is I got to work on building some of the large language models out there over the past decade or so. And I didn't know it at the time, but I built the first human in the loop, one of my first human in the loop software system back in 2012. I didn't know it at the time, but we ended up taking students and getting them to look at posts, social media posts, break them up, and to have that behavioral data and quantitative data overlaid onto some of the behavioral data of likes and comments and things like that. There we go. There we go. How many people software? Okay. So I've done this a few times. Just to close your eyes and imagine. So when I first started in the good old internet, it was the late 90s. Y2K was the big thing. And what most people don't know, and what I like to do, is actually kind of rewind back to, where things began. And what people don't really realize, if we take away some of the, I'm going to take away some of the security and some of the hardware layers, but actually the internet is built on a whole bunch of different layers. And when you look back, and interestingly, I was watching this episode of A16Z with Arthur Anderson, who's one of the founders of Netscape. It was a browser way back in the day, and he was saying like his experience and why hyperlinks are blue, and it's because he didn't like purple, right? And so the first layer of the internet was the browser layer, right? Because universities started to network together. This concept of a web page was created, and you need to be able to visualize this web page in a standardized way. And so the first layer of the internet was created called the browser layer. Well, on top of the browser layer, and back in the day, business said, I have a website. They'll be able to find me, right? They didn't expect the explosion of content that would come up off the back of it. And so for the first time, people had to be able to discover a website. And so in 1998, two guys in a garage in Palo Alto who had 238,000 in their first year of revenue created the company called Google in the search layer, right? They did a deal with Yahoo back in the day and created the most profit of any company in the history of the world off the back of that. On top of the search layer, you then got the mobile layer, you then got the cloud layer, you then got the social layer, et cetera, et cetera. And if we think into the future, Jensen Huang, everyone know Jensen Huang. He's the CEO of NVIDIA, $4 trillion company. He's got a good vibe. He always wears those awesome leather jackets, which I aspire to. And what he's able to do is actually, and what him and Steve Bezos and all these people are saying, that this new layer called the agentic layer is going to be more commercially viable than all the other layers combined, right? So just let that sink in. When we're thinking about the APAC region and the contribution to GDP over the next 10 years, it's forecasted that it's going to be around 15% increase in GDP. And so just to put that into perspective for many people, like Australia's GDP largely has been flat, 1.8%, right, in the last quarter. So think about that. Now, it's not going to be a linear rise up, but what's going to end up happening is we're going to see some massive changes in terms of how businesses are run and how businesses are going to be even designed from the bottom up. And we're really excited about that with Decidr. We're thinking about designing businesses in a new way. Just like when the online came on with bricks and mortar, the online business was different than they're back now. It was different than a bricks and mortar business. I'm sure there were some retailers back in the day. Let's just choose one called David Jones, or another one. There was a company called Eaton's in Canada, which God rest its soul, didn't survive. But when you're in a retail business and you have this online business, you don't build an online website, put it on in that case, a desktop, and then put it in the store, right? And that's the only place that people can access it. It was a different piece of technology. And people today are thinking about artificial intelligence in kind of the same way. I just said it last thing. I was on a panel and I said, where we're at is kind of like the Palm Pilot, of the smartphone, right? Remember that? I had a Palm Pilot. I was super cool. It was like this thick in my pocket all the time. But it wasn't until a few years later when the smartphone came out and dramatically changed everything that a phone, we thought a phone could be. And so you can see behind me, like the GDP growth and the power of this agentic web is truly remarkable. But where most people are today is this concept of the Palm Pilot, right? We're in AI agents, right? And for all of those, if you look at the far left of the screen, that's generalist chat. And what most people, we all have had this experience with ChatGPT or Gemini. We put in our first post is absolutely remarkable, even up to our fifth post, right? We're like, wow, this thing's like an oracle. But then it starts to give you generalized responses, and then sometimes it gives you the wrong stuff. Now, I want to make it clear. So I had the privilege of working on many of these things. These systems do not understand what you are asking of them. They do not understand meaning. They are pure probability machines. So what that means is that every word that you put into one of those things, it goes through the cloud, hits one of NVIDIA's chips, which are very in short supply, and then it goes across 20 trillion tokens. Yes, I was trying to explain to my daughter what 20 trillion is. So, and I think I've got it now. So if you count to 1 million, it would take you 2 weeks. If you count to 1 billion, it would take you 32 years. If you count to 1 trillion, it would take 32,000 years. Okay, so that's a trillion, right? And it goes across 20 trillion tokens, each word, right? And so not surprisingly, it starts to make errors. If you're going across 20 trillion each time, and all it's doing is saying, well, what word you gave me, what is the best word to give back to you based on that, okay? Where we are today is AI agents. Okay, so we do have one YouTuber here from last time, but no matter what you hear about YouTubers or influencers and they say you can build an AI agent in 15 minutes or less, yes, you can, but it will not work for enterprises, right? Because there's two fundamental issues that go in with AI agents. They're very, very complicated, right? And so what most people don't know, this is Alexa. Tragically, the only thing, at least the Brunel house we use is to set timers and to at the moment, it's K-pop Demon Hunter music. But what most people don't know is that that simple ask of set a timer, there's actually 67 submodels that sit underneath it, okay? So there's a couple really interesting things that are coming into this world, and that world is actually built on these AI agents. And why I said you can't build an enterprise grade one is because when it comes to enterprise, you need two big things, right? Number one is reliability. So if you're building an AI agent to do a bank reconciliation or to talk to a customer or to summarize a document internally or to write an email, right? You want it to be the same every single time. Now, going back to what I mentioned to you before about these probability machines that these large language models are, if you put the same prompt into ChatGPT 5 times, what do you get? 5 different results, right? And so these large language models and how these AI agents are being used today, it creates some reliability problems. Even if you have 95% reliability at each step, yeah, so think about a step as in a workflow. After 20 steps at 95%, that gives you 36% a reliable outcome. That doesn't work for business, right? Now, the second thing is when you're starting to think about these builders and these tools out there, is that, remember Uber 10 years ago? It was great, it was cheap. It used to cost me 12 bucks to get home, right? It cost me like $45 or something ridiculous these days. It's because venture capital subsidized Uber. It subsidized it so that we would destroy the taxi industry, so that we would download the app and put it onto our phones, and so we would build our lazy habits, and I'm one of them, to call an Uber instead of waiting for a taxi. Tokens are definitely subsidized by venture capital today. Number one. My view is that even model improvements that will happen over the coming years will not eclipse the subsidization that tokens are being done by venture capital today. So that's number one. Number two, going back to my 20 steps of my workflow, is that what most people don't understand is when you're chatting with ChatGPT or Gemini, each chat prompt that you put in, it has to take the tokens from the chat prompt before. Right? So if you start with your first chat is 10 tokens and your second chat is 10 tokens, your second chat is actually 20. And so what happens is that there's a quadratic increase in token chaining, and tokens are expensive. And in many cases, what people don't realize that once you start doing these things, that it will be actually less expensive to use a human to do it. Okay, so we're about to walk into a world where you will see in the news, there will this thing be called inference optimization. There'll be companies that will be built around it. The big four consulting companies will make a lot of money off of it, writing reports and doing things like that. But really what this means is like, because of the costs, and if you believe what I say, because of the costs, because of the reliability, and because of the newness of this technology, really it's only the big enterprise companies who are actually delivering this to today. Now, most enterprises who actually purchase these AI turn them off in their businesses because of the two reasons that I mentioned to you before. But that doesn't leave a lot of choices for SMEs. And so most of the AI that is out there is what's called vertical AI or point solutions. And they encompass those problems that I mentioned to you before. And so what we're going to do at Decidr is we're going to show you, we're going to start with a case study. We think that e-commerce is ripe to take advantage of the new A economy, the agentic economy, or A-commerce, because of the systems, because of the rigor and structure in the data for e-commerce companies. And we've done some interesting stuff at Decidr. Now, to seed something into your mind before I pass it over to my colleague here, who will eclipse me with his vibe, is that I get a lot of people asking me the question, where do I start with AI? And my answer to them is you have to start again. This is not about e-commerce. This is about a-commerce. This is not about a website. This is called an agentic website. It is different. Okay. So I want you to open up your minds and keep that in the back of your minds as we kind of go to the next session. But thanks for listening and thanks for following me through the technical difficulties.
Thank you. No one's ever said I've got a vibe before, so I'll leave it for you guys to judge. So what I hope to do is bring it down to ground level a little bit. Obviously, a very good scene setting, helicopter view, AI, LLMs, obviously where we're going. I'm going to take you through a very specific example of a business that we're working with, have implemented an agentic solution to them, an e-commerce SME. It's very prevalent to what Pat's going to talk about when we have a little bit panel after, but it's an attempt to just bring it down to ground level to talk about some of the tangible value that we've been adding. This is a business we were originally introduced by the founder of this business. It's an e-commerce business, female skewed, premium moisturizers, serums, etc. Founded by a naturopath, Anna, and really, really passionate about natural products, goods. The reason why every single product is in a glass bottle and not plastic, there's evidence that plastics seep into the materials, into the moisturizer itself. So we were originally introduced to the business by Anna herself. And it's quite a specific business, which is not uncommon. 100% natural products, as I originally described. Really, really obsessed with communicating the health benefits to their consumers. It is a premium business, as I said, which to some people also means expensive, which it is, but there's a good reason for that. 100% natural. There's lots of things that you would usually use, herbs, spices, turmeric is a good example. It's in a lot of products. So they were very, very obsessed with being able to communicate those health benefits to a customer who maybe would not know why there is a differential price difference. And similar to many SMEs, really constrained with headcount. So trying to do lots of things, the founder herself doing lots and lots of things. And we got into a conversation very, very quickly about how Decidr could help, how AI could help. And we at Decidr are very obsessed with goals. So goals of business and the projections, how to get to those goals. And the goal for this business was grow revenue over a 12-month period. Sounds quite vague, sounds quite ambiguous. For an e-commerce business, what's the easiest thing to do that is to increase conversion rate. So we were given a very specific goal of increasing conversion for this business. But there was also some very clear prerequisites of what they did want to do and what they didn't want to do. So the big one, the first one was the maintenance of the company value. So I'll talk about this idea of this intelligence layer, this AI parallel a little bit, and the ability to upload into that, which is on the Decidr platform, the company values, and that is how that intelligent sales agent on the website should speak to customers, what it should say, what it shouldn't say, what is the demographics of the business, things that the tool can learn to actually communicate to the customer specifically. So they're very pedantic about the company values, and they wanted the app to be trained on those company values, which is all very easy and quick to do. Understanding the benefits of natural ingredients, as I said before, and I'll say it again, they're very obsessed with the ingredients of these products. They're high value products, premium price, and they were very obsessed with customers coming on and having an interaction with an app, and the app being able to explain to them why turmeric can help you with acne, or why some other natural good can help you with rosacea, which are both quite prominent skin conditions. So I'm making the point that they were very specific about some of the things they wanted to do and some of the things that they did not want to do. And one of the other ones that they wanted to gather more information on customers. So they were very specific about email addresses. Email is the #1 channel for this business in terms of revenue. And they have a very, very effective email engine. So they wanted to be able to collect email addresses. So that's all configurable in the flow. And we're going to show you an actual example of how it works. And the big one is something that was always on. Before we got engaged, there was a previous human, what I would call a traditional chat agent on the website. Not always on, obviously, prominently 9 to 5. This is a global business, has customers in the US, has customers in the UK, but they had a human team that was interacting with customers. So that the important point here is that it was always on, 24/7, never gets sick, never gets tired, etc. Now let me draw you to the point of kind of the value of it all and how we got to it. This is the example or the point I told you about this intelligence layer, this AI parallel. If you think about Edible Beauty at the center of the business, you've got lots of these platforms that they use. Some of them you will know of, some of them you will be using other versions of it, but Meta, TikTok, Google Analytics for ad spend, for measuring visitation, of course, Klaviyo for emails, Fishbowl for inventory, Shopify is their e-commerce platform. You guys will be using similar tools or maybe the same tools. Each one individually adding value to that business and doing a really, really good job at what it should do, but it's fragmented, right? It's doing its good thing. Klaviyo is not connected to Fishbowl. Google Ads is not connected to TikTok. Our value proposition is an intelligence layer where we can connect to all those platforms individually and put that data on the Decidr OS platform, and then you can start to unlock value across the data, which is on all platforms. One example we're moving to now, which is quite valuable, is attribution, marketing attribution. So you guys will be well aware that most of those tools, Meta, Google, TikTok, would claim the attribution themselves. And if you look for attribution on ROAS in each one of those, you'll probably get a different number. If you can get that data out and put it onto a tool that looks at the data holistically in one row, if you like, a golden record, then you can start to do some really interesting things with AI over the top of it around attribution. So that's the value proposition. Connect to all the data systems. They're all adding value now, but they're adding value as point solutions individually, vertically. We're talking about a horizontal solution. Connect to all the platforms in the Decidr OS platform, and that's when you start to unlock value across all of them. And it's quick as well. So we deployed this really, really quick. So 4 weeks and 4 weeks, 4 weeks to really get some integration into the platform. We know that data is the fuel for AI, of course. About 4 weeks to spin this up. And then obviously lots of feedback loops, testing. Anna herself, the founder, was very, very involved in this, very, very obsessed with how it would interact with customers, what it would say when, and I'll show you a specific example when somebody's being hard, difficult, and we know that people can be. And then another 4 weeks, we tested it on 5% of traffic. We learned, we reiterated, we changed, we tweaked. And then within, so 8 weeks all up, it was on 100% of the traffic. So it's live, it's been live on the website now for quite a long time. So quick to deploy. This is a specific example. You might not be able to see it, but that's fine. I'll talk you through it. So you've got Ava on the left-hand side. Ava is the intelligent sales app that's on the website now that's driving conversion. And we have a thing we call the jerk test, where we just get on and we just try to hit it with difficult, ambiguous questions to see how it would act. And my background in retail and e-commerce, I've used hundreds of chatbots. Very easy to trip them up. Very easy to trip them up. And you can see first question was around, give me your email address, what's your name? And the user was saying no. Then we started asking, is this product expensive? Very vague, very ambiguous. We start asking questions around, what's your cheapest product? The point I'm trying to make is the response is always nuanced. The response is always intelligent. It goes back into the knowledge base. The knowledge base is all of Shopify's attributes and products. So it knows the products and the pricing and what makes up those products better than the business itself. But it also knows the company values, brand guidelines, what to say, what not to say. The point is you always get a very intelligent, nuanced answer. It asks who is Anna, because Anna is featured on the website quite a lot, and it's able to give an example of the founder, the story of the brand, why Anna founded the business, why it's natural ingredients, for example. We asked a question about what is the cheapest product, a very vague, very ambiguous question. It's able to pull out the cheapest product on the website, but then it's able to actually explain why that's the cheapest product, because it's a sample. It's not a, I think a 25 ml bottle rather than a 100 ml bottle. Then we ask, why is it cheap? And it's able to explain because it's a sample. We then start to ask it about a competitor, Nivea. So the customer's gone onto another website, they might have another tab open, and they've seen a moisturizer on some other website, Nivea, that's maybe $25. The moisturizer on Edible Beauty is $70. It's able to explain intelligently that Nivea is a accessible, affordable brand, and Edible Beauty is a premium brand, and for these reasons. So it's whatever you throw at it is the point. It's able to respond intelligently. It's always on, and it's able to give a nuanced answer. Those four on the right hand side: Sephora, Mecca, Jurlique. There's many, many more. There's hundreds of them. Very easy to trip up. You ask it a tricky question, it will either stop and say, please contact our service team, and you'll get a response in 235 days, or it will just time out and it won't give you a response. They're very, very easy to trip up. And this is not a chatbot. I get very upset when people try and say a chatbot. And just to make the point that we're not in the business of building these things, this was the obvious starting point for this e-commerce business. The obvious starting point for another business might be something else. And this is just one tangible example that you can add value agentically to a business, but is really a grain of sand in what this business can do across its whole intelligence layer. I won't talk through all the benefits, but the ones that really excite me are very quickly intelligent. Like I said, this was spun up in 4 weeks. We were testing it, we were iterating it, getting feedback from the business, making tweaks, uploading more, cleaning up the knowledge base, for example. It's very, very quickly intelligent, and there's not many sales apps out there that I know of. And the other one is 24/7, 365. This business has customers in the UK, the US, predominantly Australia, but it's always on. All right, all that data is captured, it's all reviewable, it's all audited, and completely constantly reviewed to constantly improve. Just on ROI, there's a lot of numbers on here, but I'll just explain. The left-hand side is versus the previous human chat version that the business was using, and the right-hand side is just versus the website. So 2 numbers I will call out is the orders on the left-hand side. So Ava is adding 52% orders versus the previous version, which was somebody, a human, online 9 to 5, answering those same questions. And on the right-hand side is just versus the website in generally. So customers that use Ava convert at a 10x rate versus the website. So you think about the website conversion might be 2%. You're talking about a 20% conversion. Makes sense. It knows the product's better. It's able to recommend you a product. It's able to add the cart to your product, and then you just go through into checkout. So some very, very impressive numbers. And we talk about these publicly a lot to bring the tangibility to it. Just a couple of things on what's next. So there is some exciting things. I'll make the point again that this was just the starting point for that business. It's not the be all and end all. Probably the top one, intelligent one-on-one skincare assessment booking. This was a feature that was available on the website previously. Quite clunky operation to reach out to a naturopath to get a consultation. That can all be configured and done through Ava, through booking a consultation, asking for a consultation. And then language expansions is the obvious one as well. It is an English-speaking business at the moment, but that business will want to expand elsewhere. So language expansions are the obvious one. And the Ava app, which is the name that Edible Beauty gave to it, is now a native app on the Shopify web store, and we're going through a process of scaling that out. And then just another final one before I wrap up, which is what we're really excited about, which is what next. So David opened up talking about agentic commerce. We've seen commerce, we've seen e-commerce. I think now we're going into a period which is agentic commerce. So this is a view of Ava on the right-hand side, the website on the left-hand side. This is what's next. The website view, if you like, on the left is completely configurable and customizable according to the interaction you're having on the right-hand side. So your browse, your search, your add to cart, your transactions, your checkout, everything is configured according to the interaction you're having with the business. So completely bespoke, completely unique, able to add to cart, which you can do now, but you're also able to check out and actually put your credit card details into the app itself and do a full transaction. But everything on the left-hand side of the website is completely configurable to your experience that you're having with that app. That's kind of where we see this going. And that's kind of what we're working on now. And that's extremely exciting. And that's kind of a little point to bring it back to what we see where this is going, which is what we're obsessed with, which is agentic commerce. And that's it from us. What I'll do now is we're going to just do a short panel, a few questions. We'll invite DCB back. Pat, you want to come up?
Thank you, mate. How do we want to see it?
All right.
Missing one?
Excellent.
No worries. Thank you.
So David already introduced you. Some of you may know. Anybody heard of the Wayflyer business? I know there's some Wayflyer team. Please put your hands down.
Yeah.
Who's heard of the Wayflyer? Okay, good. So David introduced you. I know
Yep.
you've got a lot of experience, tech, finance, etc. 20
Yeah.
years. The Wayflyer business has 5,000 customers itself.
Yes.
Maybe we'll start by you talking about the business yourself. Give
Yeah.
us a kind of 2 minute of how you see
Okay.
Wayflyer.
No worries. I'll try my best elevator pitch for everyone. So, guys, thanks first and foremost for being here today. It's a great opportunity to get to know you all and share a little bit more about us and what we see in the e-commerce world today. And I think especially how agentic AI is shaping that to where we go in the future. But in terms of Wayflyer, we're about a 5-year-old business. I'm quite a bit older than our business, but we're a 5-year-old business that was started at the beginning of COVID, really. We have a founder from McKinsey, another founder who was working in marketing analytics. And the problem they kept seeing when they were interacting with e-commerce companies was this cash conversion cycle challenge. So I'm sure you've all seen it, you've all felt it. You have to order stock at some point to take to market. But actually, when you realize that revenue in your business, it could be weeks, it could be months, and for some very unlucky people, it could be a year later. And that, for a small business or a large business, creates a really significant strain on their ability to survive as an organization, let alone market their products and take themselves to market. So that's kind of the initial problem that we sought out to help solve. And so as a result, we've been growing now for the last 5 years. We've gone from a handful of customers to 5,000 customers to help fund this significant challenge that a business has. And what's different to how we look at funding, sorry, I shouldn't touch that, how we look at funding and how we look at our customers to what you might traditionally see in a bank is they're always looking at the previous data. And where you've been is important, right? But it's not telling me where you're going. And so what we're really interested in understanding from our customers is how are you attracting customers? How long are you keeping them? What's your margins look like? And getting predictive with you about where your business is going and helping you fund for that problem, whether that's a domestic problem or a domestic opportunity, or it's a global one. We're really looking at how do we support the growth journey of the businesses that we're working with and getting predictive around their ability to fulfill that journey. So really where Wayflyers come from is trying to help organizations grow and grow in a really methodical, measured way. And so that's a little bit about us.
One of those things you wouldn't get from a typical bank, right?
Correct. So yeah, it's more about what number you pop up on Experian and different things that you've done in the past.
So we're pretty heavy in the retail e-commerce space. I've got a
Yes.
background as well. So I kind of went through some of we've had hundreds and hundreds of questions around different things, and they largely, I went back and kind of reviewed them in the last couple of days. They largely fall into kind of 4 areas: growth, customer experience, operational efficiency, and scalability.
Yeah.
So I'll start with growth, like from your end, from what you're seeing from the businesses that you provide funding to.
Yeah.
The ones that use it and see growth
is
what they want. Like, what are the attributes of those businesses that are doing? What are the things that they're doing right with that funding to make sure that they get growth?
So, good question. I think there's probably a couple of things or a couple of buckets that I'd put this into. First, I'd say like funding it can give you a great advantage in terms of your speed to market, but there's some things that you can do before you take funding that you might want to think about, which is sort of streamlining your operations before you head down that path. The next thing I'd be looking at as a business is what's the right vehicle for that. So there's a lot of different types of funding out there. Could be overdrafts, it could be growth funding like ours, it could be asset finance, it could be all sorts of different things. And choosing the right method of funding for your use case is the first thing that you've got to tackle effectively. So like an analogy that you might see in people's everyday life is, and this probably applies to 99.9% of the population, you wouldn't buy a car with a credit card unless you've got the cash sitting there to pay it off straight away. It's just like the thought of it and paying interest over a number of years just terrifies people, right? Very similar to if you're, for example, trying to open a new market in 10 retail stores, you might look at a different type of funding to what we provide. It might be something that's more of a term loan product that matures over 3 years. So first things first, make sure you're choosing the right product for the right use case. Now, for the customers we're serving, I think we mentioned just before, it's very much about that stock turn and then also the ability to attract new customers, so looking at marketing use cases. So for the customers we're working with, what I would say, where they see the most value in that funding, it's those who are closest to their business metrics. It's the least sexy answer I can possibly give. Yes, I think a lot of people understand either, I guess, the margin side of it, or their ROAS and their CAC and those sort of things. It's the people who can do both and really understand both across their whole business that can really accelerate more than others. Having the ability to know how much it costs you to acquire a customer, then what that margin is that you're going to generate from that sale means that you can make some really sensible decisions that are going to directly impact your growth, profitability, and your ability to grow as a business. So yeah, they're the two things that we sort of see when people really know how to use the funding properly. They've got the right use case and they understand the impact of that input.
Let's move on to operational efficiency. I will open to questions, by the way. I'm not stealing everyone's time. And there was quite a few that we get around these, more to do with tech and AI. So funding aside, growth aside, operational efficiency. When I think about growth, I think revenue opportunity. When I think about operational efficiency, I think about potential to optimize costs or lower costs. So moving on from growth to operational efficiency, where do you see businesses deploying funds there or doing the right things there?
So look, I think again, it's when we're talking about the stock side of our business, there's two really good opportunities you have when you've got access to additional capital, right? I think the first is being able to place orders further out from when you're going to receive the funds back, essentially through sales. So being able to more heavily rely on sea freight creates a pretty significant advantage for a business as opposed to air freighting everything, which we do see with some organizations. And the cost of that's multiples of that sea freight, right? And I think honestly, the second piece around it is supplier relationships. In a lot of worlds, you might not think too much about that side of things, but for an e-commerce founder, having really good relationships with their suppliers, great payment terms, being able to enjoy different discounts, it really can go a long way to the profitability and their ability to see that operational gain through funding.
David, I might bring you in on the Decidr side. Sticking with operational efficiency, like what we get lots of those questions generally, right? Again, it falls into either a revenue opportunity, growth, or operational efficiency, cost optimization. So, similar questions to Pat, but more around Decidr and AI. We are obviously getting thrown questions around operational efficiency and how AI can be deployed, and maybe just give us a taste of some of those things.
Yeah, well, I think it's really exciting having both of our businesses up front because there's like the free cash flow benefits that come from it and all the different kind of results of that. But and I'd be curious to get your view on this, Pat, as well. But of your 5,000, how many, when you're in a retail business, you reach these like critical stages in your growth. You can work really hard as a founder. You can get to $500,000, you can get to $1 million, and then you're faced with what I'm going to simplify it like two really simple decisions. I need to spend a lot more money on advertising, right, and stock, or I need to hire more people to do number one, to be able to do that. And so many e-commerce businesses like hit that brick wall, and lots of times that's where founder experience starts to
change.
Well, no, it's more shallow.
Yeah.
It's more shallow.
Yeah.
Right. And you can't just brute force your way through that in most cases. And I think where Decidr starts to add value is now starting to think about internal those operations, which are I've been a founder myself, not in e-com, but in other businesses. Like you spend your Saturday mornings doing accounting, you can spend your evenings looking at the ceiling and with anxiety about what's going on amongst other business activities. But it's really looking at like what are those workflows in the business that don't necessarily need to be done by you, and that can be done by a system at probably a much higher efficacy rate than you can. And that's what we look at Decidr in those areas. So it's really looking for those repeatable workflows in the first kind of the first step to start to see what can be automated. I don't really like to use that word automated too often because it's been used often for many years. Because from a Decidr and agentic standpoint, it's much more intelligent than that. However, it's really looking inside those businesses to start chipping away at, often I'll call it like the baloney stuff, which is, yes, I have to do these things. Yes, I have to look at these things. But with these new agentic systems, Decidr is one of them. There are others. They're quite reliable, right? They're deterministic systems, and so you can kind of, in most cases, put them on autopilot and then focus on the higher order work, which is, do I have a good product? There's a lot of crap shit ones out there, but do I have a good product? And what are the big levers? Funding. It could be the place that you're going to advertise. It could be other places that you start to now have more neurons to dedicate to. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Look, I think from the tech side, so for those who I haven't met today, my background is probably more tech than it is finance. I've spent a better part of a decade talking to customers about either how do you get better about understanding your customer, their journey, and where they're going and how to serve them on their terms, or how do you get better internally with your people, your processes, your automation, your technology. I definitely think there's a lot of different opportunities when you're talking lower value work to create higher value time for any founder or any person inside an organization. And there's definitely some back office stuff there. There's probably some stuff around supply chain that can be looked at. We're starting to hear a little bit from founders around it's understanding which channels are providing the best outcomes for them, and then being able to toggle up, toggle down. And there's probably some automation opportunities there where certain ads aren't performing in certain ways to toggle off, as opposed to, I forgot to get that done this week, and then all of a sudden you run another ad for a week that's not actually providing value. So yeah, I think there's definitely a few areas where people can benefit.
And just one comment on what you said earlier. I ran a car loans business in the past, and I've definitely had people in my team. Tried to use a credit card to fund a car amongst Bitcoin and Pokemon cards. However, those aren't the people that we're talking about today.
No.
Let's just switch to customer experience a little bit. So funding aside, I'm very interested in, I know because we've chatted a couple of times, and I know you're very passionate about customer experience. There'll be founders in the business, there'll be SMEs in the room. So funding side aside, very interested in customer experience, what you're seeing is good, businesses that are doing the right thing, maybe that are doing the wrong thing. You obviously are heavy in e-com, but you know the business is translating to other categories. But I'm very interested in good things that you see in customer experience and how maybe you help customers with that. And not necessarily just the funding.
No. Yeah, taking the funding out of it. I think like CX is such a big part of every business these days. It's like customers often now come to people because they've read a Google review or they've heard word of mouth or whatever that might be. Like that's a lens that we now check that 10 years ago we didn't bother with, right? And as a consumer, I'm prepared, and I'm sure many of you are, to pay a slight premium or a significant premium for the business that meets me on my terms, delivers on their expectations, and over delivers, in fact. So what we're seeing a lot of, and like part of this plays into the tech stack. Like you showed a slide just before with all the different AI options out there, and it's like the busiest slide. It nearly created a meltdown in my brain. For every business out there these days, there's that slide for their MarTech stack. There's that slide for their finance stack. There's that slide. There is so many technology options out there for businesses. And so first and foremost, understand your stack, understand what each component's doing for you and what the outcomes are that you're trying to drive towards, because each of those pieces that you're using will have an internal impact and they'll have an external impact. So really understanding, especially your external stack when it comes to CX, how you're meeting your customers, on what terms, on what platforms. It's changed so much in 10 years. We were at an event the other day at the TikTok office, and there was some TikTok influencers talking about how they're now, like a big part of their lives and their business is marketing products onto TikTok in 10-second clips, right? And that's a new way consumers are consuming brands, and they're consuming products, and they're being influenced to go and buy. So really, I think the first piece is understand how you're interacting with your customers, where in their journey you're interacting with them, on which platforms, and which of your tech stack is serving that piece. I think another big thing that we're seeing, and it's creating a lot of cost efficiencies for brands, is their ability to develop a community around their products and their brand itself. So I was yesterday with a customer who was telling us about like Black Friday, the time of year that we're in now for businesses. It's the most expensive time of year to go out and buy customers, essentially, right? They actually toggle their marketing spend down at this time of year because the cost is so significant, and they fully rely on their community. And they still see the same spikes in their business in a more profitable way. And that really comes back to understanding their customer, understanding how to meet them on their terms and how to serve them. So I think when it comes to CX, it's streamlining internally and understanding that impact on the customer externally. So like, what about you guys?
Yeah, I think I won't speak for ecom, but what you mentioned before about the different tech stacks and the hidden associated like labor costs that are going to them. I think that's an excellent exercise to do as you start to look at those, what I call those like those baloney tasks. Like if your subscription cost can be moderate or low, but if your labor cost is extremely high, that's sitting against it based on your whether it be your your ROAS or whether it be your ROI, whatever
Yeah.
the acronym is that you're
Yeah.
trying to track with that tool.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important call out for many businesses. You just get this, we call it the smorgasbord. That's the
Yeah,
smorgasbord slide, which obviously works.
Yeah,
At least works on you.
Yeah, caught my attention.
And but really to kind of think through and to perhaps reimagine, like now's the time to reimagine those stats. With it, I'm curious actually about what you're seeing in terms of like the rise of subscriptions for products.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're seeing with your cohort of customers?
Yeah. So it's probably a product-led thing. So we're certainly seeing it. We were talking about a couple of supplements businesses today. Much more of those companies are heading down the subscription path. But then when you're talking about apparel and those sorts of things, probably less so. Yeah. But it's an interesting shift in how they're going to market. Pet food's going subscription, supplements is going subscription, and a bunch of other categories like that.
Yeah, everything had coconut in it 2 years ago, and everything has creatine in it.
Yeah. Collagen.
Yes, collagen.
Collagen
okay,
now.
see another thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Yeah. What makes you look so young?
And one more point, I just bring back on the customer experience. I think I was going to make in relation to what I spoke about Edible Beauty when we were first engaged by that business. The questions weren't from the business were not how much is this going to cost? Can it remove people out of the business? It was what's the customer experience going to be like? Completely obsessed with the customer experience. Is it going to say things that it shouldn't? Is it going to be inappropriate? Is it going to swear? Is it not going to be able to explain the value of this $55 moisturizer? Is it not going to be able to explain the new, like that was the number one thing that they were obsessed with the customer experience. I think that's kind of an important point. And then we get into conversations around how could this be deployed, where's the data, things like that. But it was very importantly was the customer experience. That was the number one thing that they were obsessed with. And then there was some nervousness around it but once we were able to deploy it, test it in a staging environment and release it to 5% of traffic, and you can see that it can answer these questions that most, if not all of the apps out there can't. Then it gets confidence, and then you start to see the impact of the customer experience, and then you look at the metrics and it kind of follows from there. But the starting point was always customer experience. What is this? How is this going to help my customers? And that relates back to conversion, of course, but it was always the customer experience. So last point before I open it up to the room, scalability. And it's kind of those 4 areas I spoke about, the buckets that I would like to think of categories where we get questions from retailers or SMEs. Scalability, I'm interested in your point on roadblocks specifically to scalability. Obviously funding might be one, but there might be others. You obviously help businesses remove that funding block, but I'm interested in what other barriers, blocks that SMEs they want to scale, but what are some other ones in the block?
So look, the first and probably most obvious one when you're probably sitting in my seat is cash flow. So I won't talk too much about that, but I think everybody understands the challenges of cash flow and actually the ability to scale a company. What we're seeing probably more on the front end is it's the marketing mix, actually. Understand, like you think when you first start as a business, you go and you invest in Meta, you invest in Google, you get your first 1,000 customers. Long term, that becomes a really expensive way to scale your business, right? So the first 1,000, sure, great. But long term, it's then how do you bring in the other platforms where your customers are? I just mentioned TikTok before, I've mentioned communities. So how are you really serving your customer and how are you changing? Because the skill set it takes to set up those first ads to develop your first 1,000 customers, that's a different person potentially, or it's different technology in the back end that's going to help you drive that. So that's certainly one piece of it. And then I think another point that we see quite a bit of when you're talking about scaling, there's a lot of attraction in going overseas and going overseas early. So the big shiny light that is the US, even with the complexities around it as it stands today, it's obviously very attractive for businesses, and especially at this time of year. There is still something to be said about saturation in your primary markets before you create more strains on your business. And because the consumer, as much as we think US and Australia or Australia and the UK is kind of the same, there is differences in the platforms that they see information on. There is differences in the way people consume content, consumer expectations, et cetera, et cetera. So getting really good at what you do today before you put all those additional strains on your business is there is some value to that. As opposed to just going, all right, well, we've got 1,000 customers in ours, we can replicate that now over in the US and the UK and all the supply chain challenges that come with that.
David, I might hand it over to you. Looking forward 12, 18 months. I know that sounds like a long way away, but not. with not just a retail e-com lens on it, but what's the one thing that businesses can do, you think, to set themselves up for the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, well, I mean, just touching on that scaling piece, like there's, in my world, there's kind of two types of scaling. There's linear scaling and non-linear scaling, right? The world that we have been in is linear scaling, which means adding more of the same, right? Which is, spending more on Facebook, et cetera. It's new technology, this remarkable technology that allows us to start to engage in non-linear scaling. So that means like looking across your businesses and stuff we talked about today. So I think, I like that. I'm going to go back to the Palm Pilot thing. We're in the Palm Pilot era today. So I think much of the world is trying to experiment, and, our data from our AI readiness index, suggests that the same and kind of corroborates that statement. So I think in 12 to 18 months from an e-commerce perspective, is that we will start to perhaps first see businesses who are kind of agentic first start to emerge. I think there'll be in the news, there'll be the new kind of shiny stars that people will look to, and they'll be not celebrities, but they'll want to discuss, they'll want to talk about their successes out of that. And I think there'll be pleasingly a lot of positive copycats that'll come from that in terms of how they think differently. I also think that this statement may come back to bite me, but I believe that we actually will go into the era of personalization, which has been talked about for 20 years. I think that with these technologies, we have seen it inside Decidr, where Duncan and I can go look for the same collagen product to keep us looking young, and the description of that product will be different for Duncan than it will be for me. I think that we will go away from browsing and into conversations. So we've left in bricks and mortar, that was human full service. We went to digital self-service, and we are going into agentic full service again. So I believe if I close my eyes and I'm buying that collagen cream and I'm on subscription, I would go into a website and say, can I have that same product I bought last time? Yes. Is this the product? Yes. Do you have the same credit card? Yes. Same address? Yes. That's it. Done. And on the left hand, chat's usually on the right. On the left hand pane, the site is reconfiguring for me. It's introducing me to new things, communities, new products, and those types of things. So I think that's what I think we'll start to see glimmers of. It's certainly in the next 18 months, perhaps the next 12.
Okay. I will open it to the floor now. I think we've covered a few questions: growth, operational efficiency, customer experience, scalability. Just put your hand up, ask a question. Directed at David, directed at Pat, or directed at me, and I'll kind of
handball.
Yes.
All right. I've got two questions, but first one's a really dumb one. I'm more on the
no question was done. We like David loves hard questions.
First I'm doing the word agentic, so I'm guessing it comes from agent.
The meaning of the word agentic. Okay.
So I thought, but that's the first time I've heard the term agentic. So I thought that's how it's pronounced.
Sure. Yeah.
Second question is, in the example you showed with that cosmetic skincare, I guess I wanted to make a distinction between businesses like, say, Bingley, who sell Samsung washing machines or Sony TVs, versus now Bunnings. If you look at it, they're creating their own brands that no one's heard of, and they say go find something cheaper, but no one can compare it because no one else has it, right? That's all stuff. So that means they're gonna create their own brand. So in that business, are these their own brands, or are they stocking a Samsung TV?
You answer the first question.
Yep.
I'll answer the second question.
Yeah.
You tell us which one's the best one.
I got these. So there is generative AI and there is agentic. Okay. So generative AI or AI agents, they are task-based. So I like to use the example, book me a flight to Paris, right? That is a series of tasks which it can do pretty well, right? Let's talk about the reliability issues and the cost issues, put those aside. What is different and what will emerge probably in the next 6 months or so, that all the AI agents will go away, will be agentic apps or agentic agents. Now, agentic is goal-based. So book me a flight to Paris or find me a holiday my family will love. Okay. What an agentic agent would do is it will go to Instagram. It'll look on your Instagram feed to see if you like ski holidays or beach holidays. It may count the number of people in your photos to make an estimate of your family size. It may go to your LinkedIn profile and then it will look at your job title and reference that against a salary database to see how much you could afford. And then it may ask you a couple of questions about adventure or relaxation or what books you like to read and things like that. And then it will give you holiday based on that.
That's actually too scary.
Yeah, a little bit.
And on the stacking question, Edible Beauty is 100% own brand, so they manufacture everything and design the product. When I say the product cream, the configuration of what goes into it. I use the example of turmeric. So they use the naturopath who founded the business, writes the ingredients. The products are made. They're all made in Australia from memory. I think that's true. So they own them. There are businesses out there do own brands. It's obviously a huge commercial decision to own brands. If you own your own brands, obviously the commercial impact is much, much bigger. I think it's generally a harder sell. You look at retailers like a David Jones and a Maya's done a much better job historically of transitioning customers to its own brands. The margins are much, much higher. David Jones has a much lower percentage of their revenue and coming from their own brands, and they're trying to push those things. But Edible Beauty specifically is 100% their brand.
I guess maybe what I'm trying to ask is, have you got customers that are like a big league who don't have their own brands, but none that I know of anyway, who just sells Samsung TV, for instance, which, which is someone else's brand.
So from the example we showed, there's absolutely no difference of whether it's own brand or it's not. If you think about the example of the knowledge base, now Edible Beauty's, the large portion of its knowledge base comes from Shopify, because the products, the attributes are all in the back end. If that business did have other brands that it was selling, it would work exactly the same. The knowledge base would just include those products as well, right? So if you look at the example of Bing Lee, whatever e-commerce platform they're on, that would be the starting point of their knowledge base, but they'd also have brand guidelines, other things that they can follow, an inventory system, which might be different. It would, the logic, the technology, the flow, the outcome is exactly the same. It's just the knowledge base.
Yeah, and to add to that point, like in Ava, like what you don't see, it knows about all Nivea products. It knows about all Adore Beauty products. It knows all of those things. So that information asymmetry, which existed before, that's going away in this future. And it is intelligent enough to say, if you ask the question, how does it compare against Nivea? It will give an incredibly nuanced response, right? And no human needs to write that, right? It's based on the goals that we gave Ava. And the same thing goes for a Samsung television. So if they can't compete on features and they can't compete on price, well, what are the other things, right? It's service, it's brand, it's those other things, which the agentic system is aware of and will nuance that through.
So you could ask the question, moving on to David's point, instead of the Nivea example, you could use Chemist Warehouse example. Chemist Warehouse, a very successful business, doesn't have its own brand, stocks other brands and sells them at a discounted rate. You would be able to ask Ava, why is this moisturizer at Chemist Warehouse $15? You can buy moisturizer in Chemist Warehouse for $15. A moisturizer on Edible Beauty might be $50, but there's a very, very good reason for that. It's 100% natural. There's things in it that can help with your skin condition. So David's point was that, access to the LLM would be able to answer the Chemist Warehouse product and business is vastly different than the Edible Beauty difference. And there's a good reason why that's $50 and that's $20. It's not just the knowledge base it has access to, which type of things you can feed it. It also has access to the whole of human history with an LLM, right?
Yeah.
Very nuanced. Good question, though. Yes, right.
I guess to David and yourself, Duncan. Sorry to let you.
That's okay. I thought this might be the case.
Hardball and ever-changing website example with the chat on the right and the website updating. Like, is that there now? And are there examples of that? And who is that? Shopify infrastructure, or what is that? Is that what you guys are going to start to deliver with respect to building websites?
Yep. So watch this space. There's one coming out soon on a brand that you may have just viewed in the coming months. So the answer is it's very new. We call it it's an agentic website, so it's different. And how we deploy it is, so it's Decidr technology and it's on what we call an AI subdomain. So instead of ediblebeauty.com.au, you go to Edible Beauty, it's ai.ediblebeauty.com.au. So it's typically like a normal kind of website migration project, and you can dedicate which percentage of your traffic you want to start on the AI subdomain that starts with that. But yeah, principally, there's not any in market yet. We've actually showed like publicly some of the early kind of not designs for it. They're nearly the end designs for it. But yeah, watch this space. That'll launch shortly.
We did this version of this presentation, but that specific video was in the online retailer down at ICC in July. It was probably the piece that was kind of the most interesting. David spoke about personalisation a little bit before. It's kind of that into it. Personalisation has been a thing for 20 years, but has it really morphed into what it should be? No. So yeah, when we did the presentation down there, it was probably the one piece that got the most kind of ears pricking. So it's not live on Edible Beauty website today, but it will be soon. Yes.
Yeah, you'll start to experience it, like as Edible Beauty has subscribers, so it has existing customers. If you're theoretically, if you had 2 accounts, right, and you're starting to play around with Ava, you would get different. If you ask for product descriptions, you'll get different views of those product descriptions in the chat. So the technology exists. It's just a matter of visualizing.
Questions? Yes, man.
Just thinking about retail, and I mean, you mentioned the example of TikTok being a platform for showing you products and advertising them. How do you see the development moving, like people moving to LLMs to ask about products? You know, if I want to buy a snowboard, I ask ChatGPT to recommend me a couple. How do you see that shift from kind of retailers trying to influence these models to show their products first?
Yeah.
Is that something you're?
Yeah. Well, we're not involved. I'm definitely read up on it. So there is, there's SEO, right? There is new, essentially LLM optimization. So that's a new type of exercise. And that I would advise everybody to start taking a look at it if you haven't. So that would be number one. Number two is we're about to go back into the browser wars. So Atlassian bought the browser company just 2 weeks ago. Why did they buy the browser company? Because that's the window by which we do a lot of our B2B work. There's a lot of SaaS companies out there that have a dark future because of the agentic kind of world that's coming up. And so they're looking to have browsers. Now, there's Comet, OpenAI will have a browser. Obviously, Google already has Chrome. And those browsers will be attached to the large language models. So they'll be like an AI browser. That's what's coming. And an AI browser, why? Because they're able to capture all that behavioral data, which goes into, right, your memory, right, of ChatGPT. So everyone has a memory. You can go find it. You go log into ChatGPT and get it. And today, you can go into ChatGPT and load your products into the OpenAI. You can load your products into that, which then starts indexing. Because like ChatGPT is an everything technology. Gemini is an everything technology. Anthropic is an everything technology. And so what they're looking for is where can I go attack the biggest sources of revenue? And the biggest one is the $368 billion a year search business, right? That they're all gunning for. So don't be surprised when when consumers go in and they start to go, which surfboard do I like, or which coconut cream do I like? The ones who load their products in first will likely be the ones that pop up first. But just like when I opened, I said that blue hyperlink, like watch what happens. There'll be buttons that will appear in ChatGPT, which will be the buy now buttons.
Yeah, and it's definitely already happening. But we've heard from a lot of customers that they're starting to get their first inquiries that way. Even us as a B2B business, I think I was talking to my team over the last couple of months, we're starting to get inquiries, and like everyone always has where did you hear about us from? GPT. Sorry, I always stuff that one up. My team always laughs at me. But now that we're seeing it now from the B2B lens, but certainly seeing it across our customers. So the early adopters and the first movers are probably the ones who are going to benefit from it the most in the, I guess, coming 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. Just to follow. Oh, sorry. Something. My name's Sue. So my follow-up question on that, and I'd be interested in everybody's vision on this. I have a vision on what's happening here, but one of the things that we just talked about, the sort of the find it myself model, which has been browsing and then this evolution, now AI or AI oriented. Then you had social networking, which had a lot more to do with your vibe and you finding your tribe and all this stuff, and social proof and word of mouth and so forth. That, in my opinion, is also going to get completely reconfigured. I think the industry has its lens on the find it for me side of the equation because of Gen AI and its capabilities. I think the next big thing is the same thing's going to happen in the sort of networking, word of mouth, social proof marketplaces. So I'm wondering, I'm intending to go full speed on that one in terms of an entire AI native situation there, because right now it's becoming as fragmented, as useless, as overwhelming, as overstimulating as everything else. And that can be dramatically simplified. And I'm just trying to get a feel for, it's one thing to see that that's coming. I'm just trying to get a sense from you guys about where do you see people's mindsets around that, investments, sort of getting it, and where do you see that evolution? Is it been happening in parallel? And, or is it, people aren't, it's not even on the radar because everyone's focused on the find it for me stuff? Sorry, that was a long question.
Yeah.
I haven't had enough sleep
That's
to
okay.
prune properly.
That's okay. I got an answer. Do you want to go?
You go first.
Okay.
Yeah, you're the AI specialist.
I think my take
Yeah.
is that it's what you're describing. The market hasn't got there
Yeah.
just yet.
Yep.
I think it's a great way to describe it. It's like the find model, find for me model, which is accuracy based. I think the opportunity is precision,
Correct.
right?
Oh, yes.
which is there are these groups of influencers which I most align with, right? This
Yeah.
is these products, which again, going back to full service, right? You go the atelier, I think that's how you pronounce it, and they say, this is what's going to look good on you, right? It's your tailor, it's your cobbler, it's your buttoneer, it's those types of, like, we're going back into that world, which will be agentically powered. I think we're going, like, we'll be in the accuracy world for a little bit. And there's like a lot more richness which comes with an LLM. And again, I just want to just give a warning to everyone, is like, when you get the results from these large language models, remember they are prediction machines, right? They do not understand meaning, right? And so I think people go, oh, it's got exactly what I want. And there are papers out there, they are sycophantic, these machines, right? And so they're telling things to you to get you to use them to build a habit. Like, it goes right back to the Uber thing,
Yeah.
right? There's a paper just last week about OpenAI release, which it did on its system saying, yeah, it makes up stuff just to keep you chatting, right? So, like, let's not forget that these technologies are still they're emerging, they're sycophantic,
I agree.
and that you have to be wary about these things. So I think we need to move from a probabilistic world, right, to a deterministic world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think, I think it's interesting because the world has matured to the point where people are on the lookout for manipulation. They understand, it's not like in the early days, everyone understands that the algorithm is not for me,
Yeah.
for Facebook's ads and so forth. So I think that that'll quickly be understood by savvy consumers.
Yeah.
The second part of that is, not only is it sick, but it's also got mad cow disease, is how I can. Right, because, all of these, like Meta, YouTube, etc., they've all gone into big backlash mode recovery because they're realizing 40% of the content in these platforms that's supposed to be authentic is not
Right.
authentic.
Yeah.
And, Agentic has an opportunity to bring the sort of AI efficiencies with authenticity, right? Instead of just being mad cow disease. What I mean by that is AI models are eating their own brains, and therefore they're getting, that's not good for their mental health.
Yeah, when you look
It's
at
not
training,
good for their intelligence because they're gonna go way down, well, they already are.
yeah. I mean, if you look at the training sources for these large language models, like Reddit is near the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reddit.
For webs.
Yeah.
We need to say anything more.
Yeah, I never thought I'd talk about the Epstein-Barr virus in an agentic conversation, but here we are.
Yeah.
Well, you get my point. The point is the brain is eating itself and
Yeah.
therefore getting less and less functional and
Yeah.
useful.
I think to your point, the only real adoption of AI I've seen in social so far is content creation. And
Yeah, exactly.
and people are more and more wary around that. Sort of like you get in there with a bunch of dashes in it, you go, somebody used ChatGPT for that. You get anything that looks too nicely done, someone used AI to develop that video. Yeah.
And today's
The bullshit meter really spikes, so to speak, quite quickly. Yeah.
social because
Yeah.
it's how
Yeah.
it's generated.
Yeah. But at a like at a platform level or a systematic level, I haven't seen too much outside of the find it side.
Yeah, good. So that speaks to
Yeah.
the time and
Yeah.
Thank you.
thanks.
So I'm interested, like e-commerce
Yeah.
and companies of the future, when you're assessing all
Yeah.
your new customers from an AI perspective,
Yeah.
what are you looking for them to have implemented?
Yeah.
What strategies would you like to see them have?
It's a very, very good question. Look, I think right now that's a moving target, to be perfectly honest with you. I think what we're typically looking at, as I said before, is someone's ability to attract customers, someone's ability to keep customers, and their ability to grow their market. The mix in how you do that as a business is changing very, very quickly. And I'd say what we're probably looking at actually is we used to very heavily rely on meta spend as an example. Now we're looking at influencer spend and influencer marketing. We're looking at communities. The AI piece of that, I think, is still catching up because it's not widely adopted. But certainly, like when I first came across the Decidr guys maybe a couple of months ago, and I've got a couple of different connections into the business and what they're doing at that horizontal platform level, I personally think that's such a massive opportunity for an e-commerce company because it gives you a level playing field that you didn't have 5 years ago with Nike, as an example. So I think we'll start looking at things like that. Like, what are people not necessarily doing at a point level, but what are they doing at a business level to leverage the technologies that are coming up to make them more efficient and create a better message for their customers? Sorry, I just plugged you. But no, pleasure.
$50 later.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. Thank you. Can I have a cookie?
Any questions online? I thought I might just ask.
Okay.
Any final got time for one more question in the room?
Yeah.
If anyone wants to ask something. No? Okay. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
David. Thanks for coming to see us on this beautiful spring day. Coffee or